I'm very excited to introduce tonight's presenter. Rabbi Judith Edelsb Edelstein was ordained by the Academy for Jewish Religion, a pluralistic seminary, and earned a Doctor of Ministry from Hebrew Union College. She served as a congregational rabbi and as a chaplain. She has taught basic Judaism and a variety of classes at the JCC and other venues for 13 years. She counsels interfaith couples and individuals, officiates at life cycle events, teaches Musar groups, and writes occasional articles. Rabbi Judith, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Rachel. And I want to thank everybody for participating this evening, particularly my basic Judaism class. I'm so excited to see everyone. Before we begin, I just want to say that this evening we are not going to be discussing Israel. It's out of the provenance of this topic, but instead we're going to be talking about what makes people Jewish. So to start with, I want to share my screen with you, and we're going to have a little presentation. Let's see, play. Okay, play. So if you look at this screen, we see all Jews are Jews by choice today. And you may say, well, how is that possible? I thought a Jew by choice is somebody who converted to Judaism. And actually, once we've gotten out of the small towns and shtiebels, as they are called in Eastern Europe, and the villages of the Middle East, where Jewish life was basically pressed upon us by our surroundings, particularly in America, we are able to choose whether we want to be Jewish, whether and how Jewish we want to be. So to begin with, before we have an intimate conversation, I just wanted to share my screen with you and show you some statistics that are hot off the press. So last week, the Pew Research Center came out with a large report about Jewish life and Jewish population study. And so I culled a few items from it, which I thought would be of interest to you. Now I'm going to leave it on the screen, and I will also read to you at the same time. The U.S. Jewish population is becoming more racially and ethnically diverse, and it's actually larger than it was. We have an increase of about 2%, and we're now 7.5 million Jews in the United States. And I'm sure many of you have thought that we must be many larger because we make so much noise. 92% of Jewish adults identify as white, non-Hispanic. 8% identify with all other categories combined. Among Jews ages 18 to 29, that figure rises to 15%. So 15% of younger Jews are non-white. 17% of US Jews surveyed live in households in which at least one child or adult is Black, Hispanic, Asian, or some other non-white race or ethnicity, or is multiracial. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. A quarter of US Jewish adults do not identify with the Jewish religion. They consider themselves to be Jewish ethnically, culturally, or by family background, and have a Jewish parent or were raised Jewish, but they answer a question about their current religion by describing themselves as atheist, agnostic, or nothing in particular, rather than as Jewish. Among Jewish adults under 30, 4 in 10 describe themselves this way. And finally, another very interesting new trend is that younger Jewish adults are much more likely than older Jews to identify as Orthodox. Among Jews ages 18 to 29, 17 self-identify as Orthodox, compared with just 3% of Jews 65 and older. And finally, roughly 4 in 10 Jewish adults under 30 identify with either Reform or Conservative Judaism, compared with 7 in 10 Jews ages 65 and older. So what we are seeing here essentially is that we have a change in dynamic. What's going on is that we are becoming more liberal on one end and becoming less liberal on the other hand. So now that we've gone over those statistics, I was wondering if a couple of people would be willing to indicate why they have been joined this class. Hello? No screen? Tech help, is there a screen?
You're going to need to share your screen again, Judith. It's not sharing, but if people have a question and want to unmute, please use the raise hand function.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not sharing it anymore. I stopped sharing it. And I imparted the information that we needed to see, what we needed to hear anyway. So I'm wondering if anybody, a couple of volunteers would be willing to share why they came to this particular session. There are a lot of sessions here. You can, okay, Shep, how about you? I see.
Okay, yeah, well, because I'm very interested in this stuff, and my family is Mizrahi Jews, and I happen to have a lot of non-white people in my family, and I'm active with Kulanu. I don't know if you know them. We're involved with very different kind of looking Jews, and I've visited Jews from Madagascar to Ethiopia and South Africa. And so it's a great appeal to me.
Okay, thank you.
Unlike old time Jews, I encourage conversion. I like it.
Okay,
Why not?
Thank you, Shep. Is there anybody else who would care to say why they decided to take this class, except for my students?
Hello, I'm Kim Steinberg. I live in Idaho. And I took the class. I've already taken an intro to Judaism class, but I'm trying to discern whether I want to go through the conversion process or if I just want to live a Jewish life. My husband is Jewish. He's here with me. We've been married 20 years, but it's only in the last couple of years that, or really the last year, that I've been thinking about this. So
that's great.
I've only been serious in the last year. I was wandering for 40 years in the non-Jewish desert.
You're wandering together at this point. Okay, we'll take one more person and see if we can find out why another person is interested.
Hi. Sorry, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't see you.
Great. Oh, sorry. It's dark in here, but sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm Chaim. I came because, I'm a biracial Korean Jew, and my parents were never encouraging about religion, but I think it's something that's important to me and something I would like to be more involved in. And I'm trying to sort of make that change in my life. So it's interesting.
So far we've had 3 different participants and 3 different reasons why you took the class. So where we're going to go now is I thought we would try to start answering some of the questions that I posed in the introduction or the description of the class. And the first question was, what does a Jew look like? So I'm going to ask you, this is a participatory class. I'm going to ask you, what does a Jew look like?
You can raise your hand again if you'd like to answer, and
Yeah,
I'll unmute
anyone,
you.
please. This class is really informative. It's participatory. It's laid back. I want you to feel that you're getting something out of it on a personal level. It's not a lecture. So it's open to anyone to answer the questions. I know the answers, I think. At least I know some of them. But I want to ask you, what do you think a Jew looks like?
I'll go up. Something I often like to say is that if you're Jewish, you look Jewish. Jews are what Jews look like. That's how words work.
So no particular identifier. Okay.
I say, a Jew looks like me. You know, I got the nose. So my hair is gray now, but it was dark. So, you know, my dad's very Semitic looking. My father looked like he came from the Middle East. So.
Okay, so we have Semitic looking Jews, and we also have Jews who have blonde hair, right? And we have some Jews who have sharp noses, and we have some Jews who have turned up noses. We have some Jews who have very fair skin, and we have other Jews who have very dark skin. So we have Jews with all different kinds of features. And I think the trope of a Jew looking in a particular way, of a sharp pointy nose and curly hair, is a trope. It's not something that really holds true any longer. So we can, anyone here can look at yourself if you want and see, I could look like a Jew, just like anyone else who is Jewish looks like a Jew. It doesn't require any particular physical characteristics. And as the Pew survey indicated, we are now having 8% of the population are identifying as non-white, and 17% live in households with non-white people. So in the future, we can anticipate that there are going to be many more people of color, of black, yellow, brown, red, green, you name it. We're going to have a population of a variety of colors of skin, and along with it, hair and eyes and noses in particular. So the next question, unless anybody has something they want to share with this, what does a Jew look like? The next question was, how does a Jew behave? I know there are Jews out there, and I know there are non-Jews out there who observe Jewish behavior. So please share your observations. Okay, Shep, you seem to be eager to share.
Well, I was talking about the other thing. I mean, we have always had different colored Jews in Kaifeng, China, and Ethiopia. So we've always had Jews who weren't white. That was my point. How did Jews behave? Some behave badly, like Bernie Madoff, and some behave really well, like you. There's no particular behavior pattern, I don't think. Jews are like everybody in that way.
Okay, thank you, Shep. Anybody else?
I can share. So yeah, I agree that Jews can behave in any particular way, but there's also like the specified behaviors, like through the mitzvot. So there's certain things that Jews are expected to do. Obviously, whether or not Jews do them is up to each individual, but there's like specific behaviors through the commandments that you can look out for.
Thank you, Bridget. Now I don't have to say it. I guess the only thing I would add to what Bridget said is that there's an ideal. We have an ideal handed down to us over 3,000 years that points us down a road of a way to behave. And so we have this hope that we can be better people, not better than others, but perhaps holier people and people who are on a path of repairing the world. And so that's in a way, that's the ideal that clings to me all the time personally, as an individual who grew up with in a Jewish home, but didn't really have any value for my Jewish identity until I got somewhat older and had children and wanted them to have something that I felt that I was missing. So being a Jew by choice, it is the hope that I can become a better and better person throughout my life, even as I get into my older years. So with that, I'm going to actually, can we see video number 2 now, Matt?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ben, and I wish you all a Chag Sameach. I grew up in a semi-religious household where I went to Jewish day schools growing up. I went to Camp Ramah, and my family attended a conservative synagogue. We were observant, but by no means Orthodox. And so, as I became an adult and throughout my years of life, Judaism has been and is very important to me. It contains a set of values that guide me in terms of how to live life and in terms of trying to do the right thing every day. So what do I mean by that? Treating everyone the way you want to be treated, being honest and ethical, and also the idea of repairing the world, or tikkun olam. And to me, those qualities, which are very much Jewish qualities, are more important than being completely adherent to some set of rules or customs or beliefs that are part of Judaism. Because what value is there if you're very, very religious, but you lead a dishonest life and you treat people terribly? Shabbat is also a central component of Judaism, and it's become more important to me as I've become an adult. For me, my young family and I have Shabbat dinner every Friday night. It's a time that is a special time. We're all together, free from distractions. And there's something special about passing on this specific tradition to my children, because I wish for them that they also, when they become adults, can have Shabbat dinners with their families where they take time out of, what everyone has is a crazy, busy week, where they're grounded, they're with family or friends or loved ones, and they enjoy each other's company. And so that is very much something that I feel that every Friday, and I do hope to pass it on. Another big part of what Judaism means to me as an adult is a love of Israel that began as a child and has developed even more so as an adult. Now, the existence of the Jewish state, especially following the horrors of the Holocaust and everything that's happened there since 1948, is really nothing short of a miracle. But my view of Israel has become essentially taken on more of an adult lens as I've become an adult, because there's no black and white and there are imperfections everywhere. And so Israel, certainly there are many imperfections, same way that there are in America. But as an adult, I've learned to love Israel despite its imperfections. And finally, I've seen Judaism lived, I've seen Judaism adhered to, and I've seen people live Jewish lives in many different ways. And I think the biggest takeaway that I have just from what I've seen is that there's no one right way to do it. And so what I would say is that it's most important to essentially express how you're Jewish in the way that's most meaningful. And with that, I wish you a Chag Sameach.
So, by the way, that video was made before things became so severe in Israel. And this is an example of a young man who, as you saw, expressed his way of observing Judaism. And I'm wondering if you would be willing to share, what would you say his main value is of Judaism? How does he live and express his Judaism? If there were one or two value gems that you got from that, what would you say they were? Oh, that's good. I don't know if people, I see there are a couple of people raising their hands. Family ties.
I would say to like, oversimplifying, but I'd say it's like applying Jewish meaning and also Jewish ethics where they come up, and finding where you as a person merge with what is this general, like, amorphous, ambiguous, like, Jewishness.
Mm-hmm. So we have the fact that religion has taken a little bit of a step back, and living out Jewish values has taken a step forward. The other aspect to it is family ties. Oh yes, Elizabeth Rothenbaum says, loving his faith for the others, for Friday night, agreeing with others, Friday night rituals. So Friday night rituals is an aspect of religion, but it's religion in a home. So it's something that you can follow in your own home, whether you're with, a large group of people, or actually you can do it by yourself and experience the same spiritual joy and connection to Jewish peoplehood, knowing that you're participating in a ritual that so many others are doing at the same exact time as you are. Did anybody else notice something in particular about this young man's testimony that resonated with you, or that you have a question about? Okay, so I'm going to see if there are any parents in this group and ask any of the parents here who are either Jewish or not Jewish, but have a desire to impart Jewish values to their children, if they would be willing to contribute why it's important for them to create some sense of Judaism and what that sense of Judaism is for their children. So somebody has a hand raised.
Hi.
Hi.
I have two children, and I grew up in a probably in a more of a reformed home, and I probably live that way as well. For us and our family, I think what Judaism provides is a sense of community, probably first and foremost. Some of a sense of ritual, and as you were just talking about in the home, really about feeling and knowing that you're Jewish by our actions in the home and the things that we do, more so than perhaps following all of the rituals and rules and specifics, I would say. Some people call that more of a cultural Jew. And that's how we feel, but we observe Shabbat. It's interesting because I didn't grow up in New York City, though I live here now. And where I grew up, there were not as many Jews as there are in New York. My kids go to public school, and the vast majority of their friend group is Jewish. That was a very different experience for me. So for them, observing the Jewish holidays is normal, right? Everybody does it. And they have that sense of community around that.
Thank you. Does any other parent want to share what their sense of they want to leave to their children, or what they want to share with their children? Okay, so if no one else wants to share, then what I'd like to do is open this up to people who are Jewish in this class and ask you, what does it feel like to be a Jew? What do you feel inside you?
Well, sigh here. Now, it's just the most amazing and wonderful experience. During the pandemic, I started doing liturgy, and actually to fill in and talit and like every morning, and it has absolutely changed my life. I mean, it's just remarkable. From somebody who grew up in Flint, Michigan, where I was kind of like the odd man out. We hate Jews, but you're okay, was what I was told by my friend. Well, not really friend group, but peer group growing. Oops, I tried to lower my hand and I just raised it. So Flint, Michigan, I did the Small Cities Israel tour when I was 16, where it was about girls and drinking, and we were falling asleep during all the lectures, and then, just kind of drifted off. And so coming back has just been just so rich. And it's like, I feel like I'm sipping from a fire hose. There's so much information. There's so much out there on Zoom, and I'm chanting with Shefa, and I have a Jewish rabbi spiritual director. Shefa Gold is my spiritual director. I'm just doing everything. It's just amazing. I'm having the time of my life. So I love being Jewish.
So it feels good. Okay. Anybody have a different experience that you'd like to share? What is your Jewish experience like? I know there are a lot of people that signed on here. Oh, someone chatted, the burden that is a privilege. I'd love to hear from that person. Would you be willing to share with us the burden who has that's a privilege? Oh, you don't have a mic. Sorry about that. Okay. Well, I will be willing to, I'll share my experience with you, which was, as I mentioned before, having come from a home that was not religious at all. I was very envious of my neighbors who basically were observant Jews, and I saw that they had something that held them together. I saw them going to synagogue on Saturdays and getting all dressed up on Friday nights for Shabbat dinner. And my family didn't do that. And so I felt kind of sad. I felt like I was missing something. And as I got older, I went to different synagogues, but I didn't understand what was going on in the synagogues because they spoke in Hebrew and I didn't know any Hebrew. So I kind of gave up. Then a few years later, when my first child was born, I said, I have to get this right. I want her to know what it was like. I wanted her to feel pride, and I wanted her to feel some joy in her ancestry. And at that particular point in time, we had many friends of all different religions and all different actual, different paths of life and different races. And there was not we didn't have a sense of community, of Jewish community. We had a lot of friends and a wonderful, rich life. But I really felt that there was something missing from it, and decided that the way I would do it was to send my daughter to Hebrew school, and I would start taking classes myself. And so I started to take adult Jewish education classes. And that was what put me over the top. The thing that was the most amazing to me was I always wanted to have a spiritual connection. And then one of the teachers who gave me the key, he said, you don't have to, I had always thought you had to do everything in an Orthodox manner. And if you didn't do it as an Orthodox, you weren't doing it, and you couldn't do it, and it wasn't right. And then I learned, hey, you can light Shabbat candles when you get home from work, if you can't light them at sundown. And many things that were not very strict according to the letter of the law. So the ideal is to do them according to whatever Jewish law is, but Jewish law is to live by and not to die by. And so learning it and putting our own choices into it helps us to find a way to make it more realistic and apply it to our own lives, as Ben just said in his recording. And I think a key element is feeling community. That's another very big part of being Jewish. Feeling Jewish can be a burden at times if you think, oh, I have to do this or I have to do that. I haven't done this, I haven't done that. A lot of guilt around it, but the guilt is only self-inflicted. And I think the greatest joy is in saying, I want to do this because I know it's a Jewish thing. I mean, I was talking with a young woman today who is a former student of mine who converted to Judaism. And we both talked about donating blood and how important it was and what an easy thing it was to do. And I don't know that I would have been so readily interested in donating blood had I not known that it was a mitzvah to do so, that it was a good deed to help other people in a very simple and quiet way to save a life. And my impulse to do so is purely out of learning about Jewish good deeds, out of Jewish way of living and giving and doing for others. So I think we're ready now for video number 3.
Hi, my name is Nessa Norwich. I'm a performance artist and filmmaker living in Brooklyn, New York. And Judy asked me to share what being Jewish means to me today. I'll start by saying where I come from. My family household has been pretty culturally Jewish since I was born. My mother's family are conservative Ashkenazi Jews, Americans from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And my father is the child of Holocaust survivors who spent the first 9 years of his life in a displaced persons camp in Germany. I grew up with a lot of Holocaust education. And I went to Jewish day school. I used to love studying Torah. Understanding the etymology of words was always really, really fascinating to me. The idea of analytical analysis, analytical thought that sprang from Jewish myth. And I was always pretty into that. And I went to Jewish camp. And then in high school, I went to public school and I started to focus more on art making and theater, and I found more of a community within the theater. And I found myself feeling a little bit alienated from my former Jewish community that I had cultivated in my younger years. I think I was becoming disillusioned with some of the more American conservative Zionist culture, I guess, and it felt a little bit stagnant to me at the time when I was going to college, and theater for me felt like a spiritual practice that really resonated. Then fast forward about 10 or 15 years, I'm 35 years old. And over the last 5 years, I've been reapproaching Judaism, my Judaism, in the way that makes sense to me, that sort of aligns with my creative practice. And I think my engagement with Judaism has become a creative practice and an ongoing process, which includes, it's very holistic. And it feels, I approach it in the same way that I approach art making, with questions, with inquiry, with research, with curiosity. And I love to grow my understanding of both the heritage, the ancestral heritage of Judaism, and the contemporary practice of Judaism within a community of like-minded people who are also creatives, who are also feminist, who are in questioning, in a place of questioning with their own relationship to Israel and Zionism. And I'm interested in exploring like more of my new edge is sort of the monotheistic Judaism that was more land-based. I'm very curious about that now. So yeah, a lot of my work now has to do with examining Jewish myth and adapting it for contemporary questions and issues. Hope that wasn't too rambly, and thanks for asking the question.
So that was Nessa Norwich, and her relationship to Judaism has manifested itself in her mid-adulthood to creating, to culture, to the aspect of her personality that is making life anew. And what I find so wonderful about it is that she rejected it for a number of years and then has come back to it. Does anybody have any comments or questions about her approach to Judaism at this point in her life, or any way that it resonates with you? She's learning to live with whatever she grew up in. Well, that's an interesting way of looking at it. She's approaching it from a new angle. So I think what happens to a lot of people who grew up in a Jewish home and disconnected from Judaism at a certain point in their lives can go back to it with fresh eyes. In fact, I was talking to a very good friend of mine today who mentioned that I was telling her about teaching this class this evening, and she said, well, I didn't really become Jewish until I graduated from college. I said, really? I thought you went to Hebrew school and, that your parents did things at home. She said, yeah. I went to Hebrew school 3 days a week, and I had a bat mitzvah, and it had nothing to do with my life. It was totally separated from what was going on in my home life. My parents went to synagogue on Yom Kippur and on Rosh Hashanah, and that was it. There was no other aspect there was no connection between what I learned in Hebrew school and what I was doing at home. And because of that, I felt very alienated. And it wasn't until I graduated from college and at work, I met a Black Muslim who started asking me about Judaism, and I couldn't answer any of his questions. It left me feeling like an idiot. So I started to take adult education classes at that point, and the whole world opened up to me. P.S. She married an Orthodox rabbi, and she later divorced him, but eventually she started working as a Jewish professional and has worked in Jewish organizations her entire life. So that's not an untold story of many, many Jewish people. And I'm sure there are a bunch of you on this in this class tonight who have grown up Jewish and were very disheartened and discouraged and just left the fold because you had no way to identify because of some of the coldness or hypocrisy that was going on in synagogue life. Is there anybody who would be willing to share about that, about your experience in that way?
Hi again.
Shep, you're the only one who wants to talk tonight. There are a couple of others, you and two
Well,
others.
apparently I'm the only Jew.
No, I don't think so.
Jews like to talk. Well, I like that woman you were mentioning. I had the exact same background. Just the 15-minute Seder, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, of course, getting there late, and nothing Jewish substantial. My bar mitzvah, I was alienated from. It's like another out-of-body experience. I didn't relate to it. I didn't like it. I couldn't read a word of Hebrew. I read my Haftarah with English letters, B-A-R-U-C-H. Couldn't relate to any of it, hated it. But I went to college, and in the first 2 weeks, I had this amazing epiphany. And I came back, became a Zionist, went to Israel, started to learn Hebrew. I'm Sephardi. I studied Ladino. I went to school to Tel Aviv University, took all these Jewish and Israeli classes. Completely changed me from my old growing up back home. I mean, it really kind of alienated me from my family because they were still eating pork and doing nothing. But to me, it was the best thing in the world. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't be a full person if I didn't. Being a Jew has made me a better person, a better American.
Thank you, Shep.
The greatest gift.
So we have time for one more person, and then we're going to move on to the next. Do we have anybody captured?
Robert and Katie, go ahead. Or
Okay.
Hi. Joe.
Okay,
Right.
well, mine was just very quick. I just wanted to kind of reiterate a point that Rabbi Edelstein made before, that it's unrealistic to approach Judaism in a way that won't change. Like it's a journey for everyone, and there's so many factors in your life that push you and pull you in different directions, and so it's important to be realistic and to know that things can change over time and to accept that. Just like in your work life, your home life, and everything.
That's a great point. Thank you, Robert. Katie, do you want to add anything?
I have my hand up. Hello.
Yes, someone else? Okay.
Yeah.
Hi. Hi.
What's the point? Oh, you talking to me?
Yeah, you wanted to share something?
Yeah, I've not said anything, and I'm usually a pretty talkative person because my background is probably unique among all the people there in the room, in our rooms, our own little cubbies called our homes. I'll just say that I grew up and I was truly a minority Jewish person in Brooklyn. We were in a neighborhood that had turned Black and Puerto Rican, and I was threatened. And yet from all of that, being threatened to be beaten up and everything, I became a social worker. So I still got the message from my grandmother that Nixon was a Verstunken, a crook, and somehow a more democratic liberal thing held sway. But my father was obsessive compulsive in his need to follow everything just right with Judaism. He took the life out of it. And so my brother and father, every holiday, would have these huge fights because my brother wanted to watch the baseball games, the World Series during Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And I'm a hodgepodge of everything. I've got, I'm proud, I'm very happy that I'm Jewish. But it was a very weird childhood, hard to even begin to go near describing it. And my father came from Poland when he was 11 years old in 1920. So he made sure that we knew we were Jews, but he sort of like zetsed it on my head. Right. It was too much. It was too much. And yet he wasn't strong enough. He wanted me to go to the Herzliya, which is the Hebrew high school. Or I don't know if it's.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but we have a very limited time. So
okay,
I appreciate your sharing. Thank you so much.
No, it's just weird. That's all.
You'd be surprised. But one of the things I really want to emphasize that Estelle said is that there are many ways into Judaism, as we've just seen. And I see Lou wants to has raised his hand, so we have time for one more person, and then we have another video to watch, the last one. Lou, would you like to share with us?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, your question was, how does it feel to be Jewish? And my thought is connected. And I have a deep Jewish background, but in terms of connectedness, two things come to mind. We were on vacation with the kids in Canada. We went to Shabbat morning services in Moncton, Newfoundland, and walked out just as the service was ending. And as we walked out, the rabbi comes running out after us and says, wait a minute, I know you. And we turn around and we finally figured out we knew each other from Young Judea in high school.
Oh my God.
So, in this corner of the world, you find people.
But you made the effort to go.
Yep. The other thing is virtualcantor.com. Sometimes I need to learn a piece of the service, and I like that site because there's a cousin who posts all the liturgy from different services and readings. So I go there. But the thing about that site, virtualcantor.com, is Jews from all over the world come to this site to learn and to listen to the prayers. And the comments on the site are remarkable because there are Jews in remote locations who write that he is their chassan. He is their shul, because this is where they come online to learn and to pray. And again, it's connectedness. It's how this one little center has spokes that reach all over the world to Jews and bring them together in one place.
Thank you so much, Lou. And I think that's really important for people who are, reluctant to, who are thinking about converting or are not sure about whether it's right for them, or even people who want to practice a Jewish life, that a lot of it is up to the individual to make the effort yourself, because as in other endeavors, as Robert said earlier, your life changes, and whatever is of value in your life is something that you put effort into. So at this point, I'd like us to see video number 1, and we'll have some questions after that. We have time for questions. I'll also put my email address into the chat if anybody has questions that you'd like to ask me that we don't get to answer, which we probably won't. So video number 1.
Chag Sameach, everyone. My name is Tamara Fish. I'm here with my little boy Akiva. You can sort of see him here. And I'd like to thank Rabbi Judith Edelstein for inviting me to share a few words about what my Jewish identity means. I've come to understand that Jewish identity for me is completely temporal, in that it is now 2 hours before Shabbos, and I'm wondering if my blankety blank roast is going to be done. I don't know where my kids are. Well, one is here, the other one I have no idea. I'm thinking about how, as a parent, I feel so incredibly inept, and that ties into Jewish identity because being a member of 2 shuls that I deeply love, Congregation Tehillah in the Bronx, hi Akiva, Congregation Tehillah in the Bronx in Riverdale, and Congregation Anshe Chesed on the Upper West Side, it means that we have been fortunate to have a bevy of bubbies and tzedis and good friends and people giving advice and comfort and holding us dearly as we navigate this. My family is not nearby. That's a plan. This is true. And I think that's the essence of what Judaism has come to me now, especially in this COVID era. How do we keep community? How do we keep bonds? How do we affirm one another? Now, I'm fortunate enough to say that I feel 100% supported at Anshe Chesed and Congregation Tehillah, but as an African American Jew, I cannot take that for granted. I cannot take it for granted that anytime I walk into a shul that I'll be understood to be someone who participates in davens. I walk into any shul with a bit of trepidation, wondering if the welcome is going to happen. More often than not, it has. It has happened, and it's been wonderful. But I also wonder, you can't tell from the way he's standing how my children will be received, right? Some of you know Ginger. Some have called her the unofficial mayor of Anshe Chesed. She's a spitfire. She's green-eyed and sandy brown hair, and she's wonderful, and she blends in. My little boy Akiva is a person of color. And I wonder about his fate not only as a Jew of color, but as a person of color in this country. And I asked my community, both communities, what do we do? What do we do? And so my identities are complex. And I realize that my understanding of what it means to be a Jew and a Jew of color is very much determined lately by what has happened in this country in the past 4 years. So, what does it mean? I don't know. Ask me again 4 years hence. Maybe we'll all be in a different place. Anyway, Chag Sameach. May this time of receiving our own Torahs be beautiful, enlightening, and challenging, because if it's too easy, it ain't worth it. Blessings. Bye.
So what Tamara was talking about was community, which is very often after when I'm converting, involved in someone's conversion, when I'll ask them what they want, why they're converting, what it means to them, they'll say, because of family and community. The Jews hold family and community in such an important place in their lives. And I have come to see that Tamara is right to a very large extent. Not that other cultures don't, but I don't think they perhaps the emphasis is greater in Judaism because of the fact that we have had to rely so much upon each other historically. The last thing I want to say before I open up for questions is, does anyone, is that the Torah has 70 faces. And in the same way that it has 70 faces, it has 70 entryways. And I invite each one of you here this evening to find a way to enter. So we have 2 minutes for questions. And I'll put my email in the chat for anybody who would like to get in touch with me. And in the meantime, questions. Okay. Any questions? Well, if there are no questions, then I want to thank everybody who came on tonight for being here. And I hope that your Jewish journey is a meaningful and successful one, and that it provides you with a great deal of challenge and joy. Judaism is about seeking, it's about frustration, it's about growing and challenging, and it's about believing as if there were a God, not necessarily in God, but believing as if there were a God. Estelle, you have a question? I see there's a raised hand.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Just to say that I want to thank you for this. And I became a member of Romemu this past, before Rosh Hashanah. And that was after 22 years of belonging to a secular humanistic Judaism congregation. And I needed to hear the music. I needed to hear the chanting. I may not know the meaning of all the words, but I know them because I learned them as a kid, but I didn't learn the translations of some of the prayers. So, but I'm delighted to hear the words. And now the work is going to be to say, okay, so what the heck does that mean when you translate it? So it's special. And I'm also missing my mother's cheesecake. So what can I say?
Go to the next class on cheesecake making. So good night, everybody. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the classes that are coming up this evening. Bye-bye.
Hi, thank you so much, Rabbi Judith, and thank you everyone for attending. We'll take a 5-minute break, stretch, get something to drink, get some cheesecake, and we'll meet back here in 5 minutes. Thank you.